Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of The Comeback Kid. I am your host, Ben Friedel, and alongside me, as always, are Nate Wiggins and Matt Hendrickson. How's it going, you guys?
I'm good. I had a pretty good weekend. Got a chance to meet Demba Ba yesterday at the USD-UCLA soccer match, so that was pretty cool.
I finally got around to finishing FIFA 17, The Journey.
Yes.
It was a good weekend.
There you go. Lots of hours spent with Alex Hunter.
Lots of hours with Hunter.
Yes, and then you were saying that you started FIFA 18, The Journey, and you were a little upset.
Why do I have to go play in the MLS?
Yeah, I mean...
Why?
Well, as Nate likes to say, MLS is a springboard for success around the world, right, Nate?
We're not even 1 minute into the show, and the MLS slander has already started. Come on, you guys.
Oh, man. So, on that amazing note, we're going to kind of just jump right into what this show is about. So, every Monday at 9 a.m., we come to you live via USD Radio, and we hope to talk about sports and stories that may not get enough attention on major sports networks. But this includes soccer, sometimes MLS. We'll work on it, Nate. It's the U.S. national team has got us all in kind of a sour mood with not qualifying for the World Cup.
4.5 years.
4.5 years, yes, that is correct, Nate, until we will see the United States in a World Cup match, until Christian Pulisic sees a World Cup match. And that's assuming we even qualify next time. I mean, if this past round of qualifying has proven anything, it is to expect the unexpected. But also, we hope to talk about NHL, which we have done extensively on our past few episodes, as well as other sports. And we are also open to suggestions, so if you guys want to text us, tweet us, do whatever, you know who we are. Let us know if there's anything specifically in the world of sports that you would like us to talk about, and we will do just that. But most importantly, we prioritize our own interests and the sports we want to talk about as well, and we will take your values and your opinions into consideration as well. So, let's get right into it, guys. So, the World Series is set. The matchup is set. It is going to be the upstart Houston Astros against the Los Angeles Dodgers. This was a matchup that many predicted in, May and June. These were two of the best teams just in the middle of the season, and it's funny because we like to say that we saw this coming, but there was definitely ups and downs for both teams in the road to get here, right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the matchup that we were all expecting and maybe even hoping for at the All-Star break, I would say. I mean, that was when the Dodgers were in the middle of their impressive 43-7, 50-game span. And, I mean, that was, one for the history books. And then all of a sudden, they weren't looking so good. And I think they went on like a 14-game losing streak. They were super streaky. And I thought, maybe the Dodgers' downfall was something you could credit to the Diamondbacks' resurgence. But what were you thinking here? Because I was super wrong. I was thinking, I don't know, maybe Diamondbacks, Cleveland, and I went 0 for 2.
That was our pick, and they both did not last long at all.
I went 0 for 2.
Yep, 0 for 2. But on one side of the coin, we have the Dodgers, who manhandled the defending World Series champion Chicago Cubs. Clayton Kershaw, Nate, do you think he finally proved himself with his Game 5 performance that he is the guy you want to go through in a must-win game in the playoffs?
Yeah. I think, can we finally put to rest this idea that Clayton Kershaw is a playoff choker? Because, I mean, yeah, last year he didn't have it, but this year, I mean, he was tremendous.
Yeah, he really, really was great. Matt, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of Kershaw's playoff performance is going to be tied to some terrible Cardinals NLCS games.
Yes, my Cardinals, yeah.
So maybe the fact that the Cardinals weren't in it meant that he was allowed to have a good playoff. So I don't know. I think it was only a matter of time that the best pitcher in baseball was going to be the best pitcher in playoff baseball too.
Yes, definitely. And if we look at other main points of Game 5, we saw Kike Hernandez, kind of a platoon outfielder for the duration of his career, hit a clutch grand slam to put Game 5 and the series out of reach for the Chicago Cubs. And the Cubs, in some ways, had the Dodgers right where they wanted them, 3-1 down. We saw it last year against Cleveland. They stormed back from 3-1 down to beat the Cleveland Indians last year. But the Dodgers were like, no, we're not going to let you come back from that, and they cut the cord right there on the Cubs season. This was partially to do, and we've discussed this specific player at length. Kenta Maeda out of the bullpen has been electric. As a starting pitcher, we see him cruising low 90s, 91, 92, cute little like slider, and just nibbling the corners. He's been coming out of the bullpen in the 8th inning, throwing 95, 96, painting, and just overpowering guys. What have you seen in Kenta Maeda, Nate, that has really impressed you?
Well, actually, fun fact, I actually saw Kenta Maeda's first ever MLB start. It was against the San Diego Padres.
Oh, yes.
And he actually homered in that game.
Really?
In his first MLB start. But I've been really impressed with Maeda coming out of the bullpen. And I think, we've discussed it at length on this podcast, starters coming out of the bullpen. And I'm not the biggest fan of it because, we saw what happened in Game 2 with John Lackey coming out of the bullpen and giving up the walk-off home run. But I've said it before on this podcast, you have to win or lose with your best. And, right now, Kenta Maeda is the best option that they have in the 8th inning to be the bridge from the starting pitching to get to Kenley Jansen. That 8th inning guy is super important. If you don't have a good 8th inning guy, look at the Red Sox. So the fact that they have a guy who can come out of the bullpen and, like you said, be throwing gas, be pumping 97-mile-per-hour fastballs behind guys painting the corner, that goes a long way.
If you had to take one of these pitchers in the 8th inning, who would you take, Maeda or Lackey?
Maeda, what kind of question is that?
I think Nate answered his own. I think Nate answered that question with his previous response. But that actually leads us to our next point, because you mentioned the Cubs and them attempting to bring their kind of lower order starting pitchers into the game to be these kind of mega relievers, such as John Lackey. And we saw the Dodgers do that effectively with Kenta Maeda. And that begs the question, what were the Cubs lacking this year that they had last year? Because it was like the Wade Davis show and everyone else. Wade Davis was putting the team on his back pretty much the entire season. He was their only all-star as well. What were they missing this year that they didn't have last year?
So first off, I hope the listeners know that I was kidding about Lackey and lacking Lackey. Anyways, I really don't know. I don't have an answer for you on that one. I think they retained most of the lineup, and I remember going into this year that Brett Anderson was the only person on the Cubs roster who did not have a World Series ring. So I'm not sure what it was. It has to be some kind of mentality maybe that they were lacking, or just the sophomore slump curse of trying to defend a championship, or maybe just some kind of management style in the clubhouse. I don't know.
You know what I think they were missing? They were missing Dexter Fowler.
Yes.
He was so important to that team when they won the World Series. And all season, they could not find a consistent leadoff hitter. They had Kyle Schwarber batting in the leadoff for a while. They had Anthony Rizzo batting in the... They had John Jay batting in the leadoff for a while. They had Anthony Rizzo batting leadoff for a while. They could never find a consistent guy like they had with Dexter Fowler. And because they never had a really consistent leadoff guy, they weren't obviously getting as many guys on base. And they just couldn't score runs the way they could in the past.
I think the Cubs thought they had a leadoff hitter in Anthony Rizzo when he started out super hot. I think the first 2 games that he led off, he had like a leadoff home run. But obviously that success didn't sustain. So you know what? You're right, Nate. I think a lot of it came from their leadoff position.
In my own personal opinion, I think a lot of what the Cubs were lacking this year was starting pitching depth. Last year we saw the Cubs use 6 starting pitchers the entire season in order to win out the National League Central and to win the World Series. That, in an age where 50% of pitchers on average get hurt at least some point during the year, is a recipe for disaster, especially when you have an aging starting core like John Lester, who had a pretty bad year this year. I had him on my fantasy team. He wasn't doing me any favors. John Lackey took a significant step back. He's like 70 years old at this point. Like, he's very old, and they were relying on guys like Mike Montgomery, who isn't necessarily used to being a starting pitcher throughout the year, to come in and eat up more innings than he's accustomed to. And when you're a World Series defending World Series champion and you have to rely on Mike Montgomery to kind of carry your team to success, starting pitching wise. It's not a formula for success. We did see in the latter half of the season the revitalization of Jake Arrieta. I think he gained himself a lot of free agent dollars in the latter half of this year because he really did show signs of the Cy Young winning Jake Arrieta that we saw a few years ago. And so while there were a few bright spots for the Cubs this year, I believe we all agreed they were one of the weaker teams going into this year's playoffs. They had the least amount of wins of any playoff team other than the Rockies and the Twins, of any division champion. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And so when you're running into a juggernaut like the Dodgers, it's going to prove to be very difficult to win out that series, and that's exactly what it was. So Dodgers in the World Series, first World Series since 1988, and they will be met by the Houston Astros. What a series, guys. What a American League Championship series that was. The home team for every single game that was played won each game, and some say that baseball may not have the same home field advantage as other sports, such as soccer, such as basketball. Home field advantages, or home court advantage, rather, is very important, especially in the NBA Finals. But we saw home teams really home fan bases really coming behind their teams. The Yankees were hungry for a deep playoff push because they're accustomed to that in the past, and they, we're lacking some successful playoff years, and so this is the deepest the Yankees have gone in a long time. And the Astros, especially after Hurricane Harvey, have just been hungry for something. The city of Houston's been hungry for something to rally behind, and the Astros have really just given them that. So, guys, if you were to pick one player in this series that really stood out to you, who would that be?
Easy. Justin Verlander. I mean, I said last week that he's my pick for the playoff MVP. I found out that's not a thing. But he did get the ALCS MVP, and I think it was well-deserved.
Yeah, I think you have to go with Verlander. I mean, he said before Game 6 that, this is the start that they brought me here to start. I came to Houston to start games like this, and I mean he was absolutely tremendous, and they needed that from him, especially how terrible their bullpen has been, particularly during this series. They needed a great start from Justin Verlander in Game 6, and he absolutely delivered.
He really did. He is in many ways revitalized his magnificent career down in Houston because he's back to playing competitive baseball with a fan base that's hungry, a fan base that is really excited about him being there. I feel like in Detroit, people were just accustomed to Justin Verlander taking the mound every fifth day, and it didn't have the hype. He didn't have the hype that he deserved, and now in Houston, he is definitely getting the love that he deserves in that ace role as a part of a fantastic rotation, which we saw on full display in Game 7. Without Charlie Morton and Lance McCullers, the Yankees definitely, I think, would be going to the World Series. We saw two pitchers used in Game 7 by the Houston Astros. Charlie Morton started this game. He is their number 5 starter, has kind of been a journeyman, bounced around a little bit, had some arm problems when he was in Pittsburgh, and Houston took quite risky chance on him, I thought, when they signed him to a 3-year deal. And you see Charlie Morton got a 3-year deal. Like, what is going on? And we saw in Game 7 the other night exactly why he received that 3-year deal. He's nasty. He's throwing 97 with crazy bite and movement. And he's Matt, what year was Charlie Morton born?
1983.
1983. So Matt knows most athletes' birth years, fun fact. So 1983, and so that would make him how old, Matt?
Turning 34. I think he's in November. 83.
Yeah, oh my God. So as a 34-year-old, still throwing it up there at 97, 98 miles an hour is very impressive. And Charlie Morton threw 5 shutout innings to start Game 7, completely manhandling the New York Yankees, and then we saw your boy, Matt, Lance McCullers, come in with his filthy curveball, just dominating the Yankees and closing the game out.
My boy?
Your boy, yes. You have no affiliation with Lance McCullers. You looked at me, so I felt there was a connection there. However, this was so big for the Astros, not just because it brought them to the World Series, but Nate, we were talking about this. The bullpen, the Astros bullpen has been in rough shape this postseason.
First off, Matt, that is very creepy that you know so many athletes' birth years and birth months. But yeah, I mean, like I said, a few minutes ago, their bullpen has been absolutely atrocious. And so to go into or to play a Game 7, only having to use 2 pitchers, and to be able to first off not have to even worry about putting in someone from the bullpen and then blowing it, but also the fact that now your bullpen is fresh going into the World Series. I mean, that is huge. That cannot be, the importance of having a fresh bullpen cannot be overstated enough.
Yeah, definitely. And they didn't have to utilize a Justin Verlander in Game 7, and so we could potentially see him toeing the rubber in Game 1 against Clayton Kershaw potentially, because they've had a lot of days off. So yeah, Clayton Kershaw and Justin Verlander, arguably 2 of the best pitchers of our generation, going toe to toe in Game 1 of the World Series. There's nothing more exciting than that. We're all going to be watching. It's going to be a fantastic World Series. I was disappointed when Cleveland and Arizona came out, but I'm very satisfied with this World Series matchup. And if the Yankees had made it, may have not even watched the World Series. Yankees, Dodgers, not much appeal there. Houston, LA, a lot more appeal for me at least. So that brings us to our predictions, guys. What are you guys thinking for Dodgers, Astros? How will this series play out?
I got the Dodgers in 7. What about you, Matt?
Dodgers, Aaron Rodgers, Steve Rogers, whatever. Astros in 6.
What?
Oh my gosh, that was good. That was good. That was really good. I have the Astros in 7. I think this is going to be a very competitive series. I don't think the Dodgers have played a team of the Astros' ability so far this postseason. They went through a Nationals team which has a curse put upon them, the Washington D.C. sports playoff curse, and the Cubs really didn't show up. So this is going to be a real test for the Dodgers, and I think the Astros will have another very difficult team to play against in the Dodgers, as was the Yankees to them as well. So my prediction, Houston in 7. I really, for the city of Houston and all they've been through with Hurricane Harvey, I think it would be such a boost for the city of Houston and for the Houston Astros to get their first World Series title in franchise history. I think it would just be fantastic for the city, fantastic not only for the city, but for the players that have been there through the hard times as well. You have guys like Jose Altuve, who is a perennial MVP candidate every single year, and he was there on those 100 lost teams, and so this is going to be a great series to watch. So coming up next on The Comeback Kid, we recap a busy week in soccer. The international break ended, so we are back to European soccer. Champions League was going on, Premier League was going on. It was a very busy week, and we will be right back to recap all of it. Stay tuned, you guys.